Welcome to Hollywood Latest Reports. Victoria Osteen has always been known as the calm, gracious, and faith-filled woman standing beside her husband, Pastor Joel Osteen. For decades, she's been the quiet strength of Lakewood Church, often speaking words of encouragement that touched hearts across the world. But few ever truly saw what went on behind that radiant smile. The silent struggles, the tears that never made it past the pulpit, and the moments when her faith was tested not by enemies, but by those who should have appreciated her the most. Recently, during a Sunday service that began like any other, something different happened. Victoria walked onto the stage with a look of emotion that the audience immediately noticed. Her voice trembled as she began to speak. "I can't keep this inside anymore." Those words echoed through the auditorium, leaving everyone silent. What followed was one of the most emotional and honest moments of her life, a confession years in the making. For years, Victoria Osteen has stood under the spotlight beside her husband, yet somehow, she remained in the shadows. While Joel became one of America's most recognized pastors, Victoria's own spiritual message, one filled with warmth, compassion, and strength, often went unnoticed. Despite her tireless work, her leadership, and her ability to uplift millions through her words, many failed to recognize the depth of her influence. She spoke that day not to gain attention, but to release years of quiet pain. "People see us smiling, standing strong, always speaking faith," she said softly, "but they don't always know the weight that comes with that. For years, I poured everything I had into sharing the word, believing that one day people would see that my voice matters too." Her honesty struck the congregation deeply. Some began to cry, while others bowed their heads in reflection. For the first time, Victoria Osteen wasn't just a co-pastor or a supportive wife. She was a woman revealing her heart before God and before the people she had served faithfully. She continued, recalling the early years of Lakewood Church after Joel took over from his father, John Osteen. Those were challenging times. The pressure of building one of the largest churches in America was enormous, and while Joel received the spotlight, Victoria often handled countless behind-the-scenes responsibilities: counseling, mentoring, organizing ministries, and guiding women in faith. Yet in many interviews and reports, her efforts were rarely highlighted. "I always believed that God saw me," Victoria said tearfully, "even when people didn't. I used to tell myself, 'Victoria, keep going. You're not doing this for applause, you're doing this for the kingdom.' But sometimes the silence from people can be louder than any words." Her voice broke as she shared how that silence, the lack of appreciation, had worn her down over time. "There were moments I asked God, why am I even doing this? Does anyone really hear me? And he reminded me, 'I hear you, Victoria.' That's when I realized my worth doesn't come from applause or recognition. It comes from obedience." Those words brought the audience to tears. Many had never imagined that someone like Victoria Osteen, admired, respected, and loved by millions, could ever feel unseen. Yet her story revealed a truth that resonated with countless believers. Even the most faithful servants sometimes feel overlooked. Victoria went on to share stories that had never been told publicly before. She spoke about the days she stayed up late preparing her sermons, making sure her message would touch hearts. She described the countless prayers whispered in private for the people who came to Lakewood seeking hope. And she shared how she often struggled to balance being a wife, a mother, and a minister in a world that constantly expected perfection. "I've always tried to be strong for everyone else," she said, "but sometimes I forgot to be gentle with myself." Her words felt like a mirror to so many in the crowd, especially women who had spent their lives giving, serving, and supporting others without being seen. Victoria's confession wasn't just about her. It was about everyone who had ever felt invisible in their calling. "I remember one night," she continued, "I sat in my room and asked the Lord, 'Am I doing enough?' And he spoke to my heart, 'Victoria, you've done more than enough. I didn't call you to be seen by man. I called you to be faithful.' That changed everything for me." Her raw vulnerability revealed the side of ministry few ever talk about: the loneliness behind leadership, the exhaustion behind encouragement, and the deep human desire to be valued. She also spoke about the misconception that she lived an effortless life of blessings. "People think it's easy for us because we smile on stage," she said. "But behind those smiles, there have been seasons of loss, misunderstanding, and pain. We've had to keep walking even when it hurt." Her message wasn't one of complaint, it was one of healing. Victoria reminded everyone that sometimes God hides us on purpose. "When you're hidden," she said, "it's not rejection, it's preparation. God's shaping you in silence for something greater." The church erupted in applause as she paused, tears flowing freely. For a moment, she just stood there, breathing deeply, letting the silence speak louder than words. Those who have followed Victoria Osteen's journey know how faithfully she has stood beside Joel, not just as his wife, but as a partner in faith. Her books, including Love Your Life and Exceptional You, have encouraged readers to live with purpose and grace. Yet, until that moment on stage, few had understood how much personal sacrifice had gone into that ministry. She reflected on how often people assumed her life was perfect. "Sometimes people look at us and think we have it all figured out," she said. "But the truth is, we're all learning, we're all growing. I've had to learn that it's okay to not be okay sometime." The message turned deeply spiritual as she began talking about the importance of perseverance. "If God has placed something in your heart," she urged, "don't let the world's silence discourage you. Keep doing what He called you to do, even if nobody claps, even if nobody notices, because one day God Himself will say, 'Well done.'" Her words became a rallying cry for those in ministry and beyond. People across the world who later watched the clip online said they felt seen for the first time. One viewer wrote, "Victoria's honesty gave me strength. I've served for years and felt invisible too, but now I know God sees me." As the service went on, Joel Osteen stood beside her, visibly emotional. He gently placed his hand on her shoulder as she spoke. It was clear that this moment wasn't just another sermon. It was a breakthrough, a healing that had been years in the making. Victoria's story reminded everyone that even in the grandest churches and brightest lights, there can be shadows of silence. Her courage to speak up showed that vulnerability doesn't weaken faith, it strengthens it. In her final words that day, Victoria looked out over the crowd and said, "Maybe you've been serving quietly, giving your all, and wondering if anyone sees you. I'm here to tell you, God sees every seed you've sown, every tear you've cried, every act of love that no one else noticed. He sees it all, and He will reward you in His time." The congregation rose to their feet in applause. Some wept, others lifted their hands in worship. There was a sense that something sacred had just happened, not just for Victoria, but for everyone listening. In the following days, social media was filled with clips and quotes from her message. People called it the most honest sermon ever shared by Victoria Osteen. Many said they had never felt so connected to her before. What she had shared broke through the polished image and revealed the heart of a woman who had simply wanted to be heard. For Victoria, that day marked a turning point. It wasn't about fame or validation, it was about freedom. Freedom from carrying the unspoken weight of unappreciation. Freedom from pretending that everything was fine when sometimes it wasn't. Behind every preacher, there's a person who also needs encouragement. Behind every smile, there might be a silent prayer for strength. Victoria Osteen's courage to speak reminded everyone that even those who inspire millions still crave acknowledgement, not from the world, but from God. As she walked off the stage, she was met with an outpouring of love and gratitude from her church family. For once, the woman who had spent decades uplifting others was the one being lifted. And maybe that's what she had been waiting for all along. Not fame, not praise, but understanding. To be seen not as Joel's wife, but as Victoria Osteen, a faithful servant, a teacher, and a woman whose voice finally found its place. Because sometimes, breaking silence is not about speaking louder, it's about speaking truth. In the days that followed her heartfelt message, Victoria Osteen's words continued to echo beyond the walls of Lakewood Church. Many people began to see her in a new light, not just as a smiling figure standing beside Joel, but as a powerful woman of faith who had quietly carried the weight of ministry with grace. Across social media, testimonies poured in from people all over the world. Some said her message reminded them to find their worth in God, not in human approval. Others admitted they, too, had felt invisible in their own lives, in their families, their churches, or their workplaces, and that Victoria's courage had helped them heal. Meanwhile, Victoria stayed humble. She never sought to turn her emotional confession into publicity or promotion. Instead, she used the opportunity to speak more about the importance of inner healing and spiritual balance. "We can't pour from an empty cup," she told a small women's gathering later that week. "God wants us to rest in Him, not just work for Him." Her transparency inspired a new wave of connection within Lakewood. Many who had once seen her only as the CO pastor began reaching out, sharing their own stories of silent struggle. The women's ministry at the church began to grow rapidly, filled with people who said they finally felt seen. Joel Osteen, in several interviews afterward, expressed how proud he was of his wife. "Victoria has always been the heart of this ministry," he said softly. What she shared came from a very deep place, and I think it's something a lot of people needed to hear. We're all learning that even in faith, honesty and vulnerability can heal more than perfection ever could. Victoria herself later admitted that it had taken her years to reach that point. "There was a time," she said during an interview, "when I thought strength meant silence. That to be strong, I had to hold everything together, smile, and never let anyone see me break. But God showed me that strength looks different. Sometimes, strength is being brave enough to speak." Her message began to resonate especially among young Christian women. Many felt encouraged to embrace their voices and share their testimonies, no matter how overlooked they felt. Victoria often reminded them, "Don't let the world tell you your voice doesn't matter. God gave it to you for a reason." Behind the scenes, her team noticed a shift in her energy. There was peace in her tone, a softness that came after release. For years she had carried unspoken emotions, not resentment but a longing to be understood. Now, after finally breaking her silence, she seemed lighter, freer, and more joyful. During one recent service, she addressed the congregation again, this time with calm assurance. "When I said I couldn't keep it inside anymore, I didn't mean pain alone," she explained. "I meant purpose. God has given me something to share, and I'm not holding back anymore. If my story can help someone else keep going, then it was all worth it." That statement summed up the journey of a woman who had walked through seasons of invisibility only to emerge with renewed confidence. Victoria Osteen proved that even the most radiant smiles can hide years of quiet endurance, but also that when God's timing comes, He brings every hidden thing into light. Her voice, once underestimated, now speaks louder than ever, not because of volume, but because of truth.